All right, so I'm up this morning kind of early, and there's only a little bit of coffee, but gosh, I really need some. And it's like it's all black, so I didn't put any creamer in it because I was just like, I don't have time. It's just a little bit, but I got the other brewing in there, so I'm not a big fan of black coffee. It's just bitter to me. Ugh. Especially the way I make it. Like if I made it normal and it wasn't so potent, it wouldn't be as bad. But anyway, you guys don't really care about my coffee situation. Be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. I got this email from someone who says, "Hey Hirsch, I wanted to get your opinion on something. I am a black woman. Why do you think that us black women are single?" I asked this question because there's so much advice online from people who claim to be experts in relationships and marriage, but yet they're not married. It would be more, it would mean more if it came from someone who's actually married, who's actually has a long-term relationship, and who actually I love this lady already. And who actually have kids with the wife that they're married to. I would like to hear some information from someone who actually has experience in this versus just assuming. Why do you think that black women are single? Now I understand that you're married to a non-black woman, and that's a completely different topic for a different day. But I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are overall. Well, thank you for that question. That was funny. That was funny. I liked it. I liked it. Um, Let me say this. I think that it's not just black women. That's kind of the myth that it's just black men curving black women and not wanting to date them or anything like that or get into a serious relationship. I don't think it's just black women, right? When you look beyond that, it's a lot all women. I think that you're seeing more and more and more of that. I do think that maybe black women have a harder time, obviously. There's no question about that. But I think when you look at the grand scheme of thing, a lot of people are not getting married or even dating. You see all types of women on online, blonde hair, blue eyed, and they think they're beautiful, and yet nobody approaches them. Or there's videos of women saying, "I'm beautiful, my girlfriends are beautiful," and nobody approaches us. Men are scared to approach us. And it's not that men are scared to approach you. Again, sometimes the juice is not worth the squeeze. The problem is that too many women, and I'm not saying you, but too many women want to build a dude. They want a guy that they can put together and build together in their image of what they think a man should look like, be, and do. And he's got to look a certain way. These are facts. He's got to look a certain way. He's got to make a certain amount of money. He's got to have just enough of this and just enough of that. Right? We don't have an equal viewpoint. And you find men who are saying, "I'd rather date a woman who's not as attractive facially or what have you, but has a great attitude, and that is really and truly about not just themselves, that takes accountability and all these other types of things," right? So it you have to look at it this way. There are more single people. One of the first times in modern history, or in any type of history, where there are more single people than there are married couples. That's kind of the norm now, right? There's more people that are not in a relationship and everything else than there are people who are getting married. And that's going to continue to increase where you have less and less and less and less of that. Why? I have many different reasons as to why that's the case, or what people think might be the case. You hear a lot of people on YouTube talking about why that is the case. But I think, simply put, a lot of men are saying that, hey, white men, black men, Asian men, Hispanic men are basically saying that it's a two-way street. The things that you're wanting, can you produce yourself? If we take all of our makeup off and you have a man sitting next to you, are you guys equal? And if you have some who will say that who feel that they're much prettier than what people think. Now, people are going to say, we are living in this world of everybody just judging what people looks like, and you shouldn't judge people, and women are judged by their bodies, and they should be judged by their minds, and it's always just looking at how pretty a girl is, or how thin she is, or how this or how that. But that's the same thing that men go through. There are many women who will never ever, if I was single, never even give me a second chance. The vast majority of women are not going to give me a chance because of my race, because of what I look like, everything. There's a lot of women, the vast majority. There's a small window of people who will even come close to saying, yeah, I'd date him. And that replicates itself over and over and over and over and over again. So when you have guys that look better than I do, and you have women that are not that cute, basically saying like, nah, you got to come better than that. Or nah, they have nothing to really offer other than their genitals. And they think that that's enough. But guess what? I can go anywhere on the planet and find someone with the same type of genitals that's going to give me more of give me a good life. Someone that I can have good conversations with. Someone that's very feminine. To me, this is for me. I want someone who's an independent person, right? But still also say that even though I'm independent, I choose to have a partner in my life and that he is the head of the household. Now, some women don't like that, and that's fine. There's a big chunk of women who don't believe in that mindset, that the husband's the king and she's the queen, and basically we follow his lead. There's not a lot of women that feel that way, or women that want to be very feminine. There's not a lot that want to be that way. Or they want to do what they want to do. They put on the pounds and pounds and pounds of makeup. Now, here I will say you don't see that as much. In Washington, you see a lot of people with no makeup on, a lot of women. And it's great because then you get to actually see what a person looks like as opposed to a character. Because anyone can easily fake what they look like. And that's not the true authentic self. I mean, a lot of people who would never cut it as a model, because it's hard to be a model, can easily become one just based on makeup. That's not actually fair. You see videos of women who are in their 30s now who basically swerved and curved a lot of dudes that would have been the perfect fit for them. And I'm not just speaking about black women, because this is women of all. I've dated enough women of different races to tell you that pretty much they're all kind of the same. That essentially they curved all these guys in their younger years saying, I got plenty of time. Or they got into relationships and the dude just was not exactly what was in their head of what they wanted. And then when they're in their 30s, they realize like, dang, no one's paying attention to me. And what women don't understand and what men do understand is that men compete with all men. If I'm 18 years old, guess what? I'm competing with men who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, because women will choose a guy. She might be 25 and she's dating an 80-year-old billionaire. So men are competing with all men, and we understand that. Women don't seem to understand that you're competing with women who are 18 years old that never has had any sort of kids, that has never, they don't take things as much for granted. So while some people may ridicule those men who go after those women, the same can be said for women who go after very old men or wealthy men or what have you. You could take another thing too. It's very common for a woman to offer really nothing but looks. Maybe didn't even graduate high school. And she can get with a very wealthy man and him take care of her. And so she went from rags to riches overnight. That's very, very common. But it's not common the other way around. Now, is that fair? No, it's not. But men see that and they're like, So no matter what I do, even though we're the same age. Let's say somebody, the chick's 25, but she's with a guy that's 48 and he's some executive. The guy that's 25 is like, okay, so I look better than this guy. I'm in better shape. He's got a pot belly. He's old, yet she wants that guy as opposed to a guy who's her own age and a guy that even looks better physically in many aspects than him. It's a money thing. So for guys, it's like, got it. Got it. So now what do guys do? They typically go for women who don't have such grandiose, it's not this build a dude type aspect, and they go for women who live in other countries. There's a lot of things that have led to that, right? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of what that is, but in our community, there's this misconception that every black man is just fighting to get with a white woman or with a non-black woman, and that's just not true. I think that every black man is wanting to get with someone that's got common sense, that is respectful, that can be very much a lady. And some people think that they fit the definition of a lady or very feminine, and they're not. There's a reason why relationships have declined in the last 50 years in terms of marriages. They've just been on a steady decline. Right? There are women who have this false sense that I can get 15 degrees, be the top of a huge company, and I need a man on my level. Well, then you're starting to get into more narrow amounts of people. And then the question is, do they find you appealing or attractive? Just because you've achieved all of those things and you have all of this behind you doesn't mean that men will find that attractive. Other women may find that attractive. And sometimes I think women they compete with other women in terms of just trying to put on makeup and trying to achieve certain things, but they're not asking men exactly what it is that you like. The women that do end up being married. Now, that's not always the case, but there is a strong correlation as to why a lot of men are not wanting to get married or even approach women anymore. Because what's the point? To constantly get rejected? And for women, there was a time when me and some guy friends went into a club, I believe it was, or a bar. It wasn't a bar. I didn't do a lot of bars back in the day. I used to do a lot of clubs. Went to a club, and this one guy, white guy, that was a friend of ours, one of the most attractive ones out of the crew, okay? He went to, we did this test. And he went to all of the women that we pointed out to, and we said, hey, see what they say. Strike up conversation. And when there were girls who were on his level in terms of looks, they would do small talk, but kind of were not at all interested whatsoever. Right? They weren't interested. They were like, even though they were equal. Now, it's not like that he was trying to, we had rules. You can't do any sort of innuendos or anything like that. No pickup lines, none of that. Just basic conversation, which he was good at. He had a career in doing stuff like that. So it wasn't like anything was out of line, and she just kind of was like, she continued on with her girlfriends. Now, there's many reasons for that. Maybe she wasn't looking for anyone. Maybe she had a boyfriend. Many different things. But as he went further down in terms of women who are not as attractive, the answers got more and more positive. Because the ones that were not as attractive were aiming for him. We then found a guy that was equal to the one that was not as appealing. And she completely swerved him. Even though he has a better job, he's not as much of a womanizer as I don't think any of them are now. I think they're all married. But he wasn't a womanizer, none of that. Really good, genuine guy, one of the nicest guys that you'll ever meet. But no, said absolutely not. Then he went to the prettiest chick before, and she just completely just didn't even say anything to him. She looked the other way. So that's kind of, we did that little experiment because guys talk. You see what I'm saying? Amongst guys, we don't have like all good looking dudes hanging out together. That's typically not how it is. Women, you see a lot of that. You know what I mean? Like if you look at, for example, I know we're using celebrities. If you look at Kim Kardashian, look at her friends. They all look bad, meaning good looking. They're all bad. I mean, pick one that is not. It's hard to find. You see what I'm saying? Guys don't operate like that. We got some ugly friends, some good looking friends, some mediocre friends. We have a whole mix. And I'm not saying all women do that, but you have a lot of women who are very, and for me, I look at the company you keep. Because if someone is so vain or so into themselves, that's going to turn me off. And a lot of guys are that way. So the prettiest of women get ignored because they're in there just throwing their hair and, you know, they thinking they're the ish. They walk in packs close together like they're afraid to be in there. And that 99.9% of the guys in there are cretins. Well, then, of course, other guys see that who are these women's type, and they're like, I'm not interested in that. They may be interested in terms of just a short-term type of thing. That happens. But as far as long-term, that's the biggest thing. I think that women have to come back down to earth overall in terms of just the way that some come off. Not all, but there's enough out there. When I was even dating, there was a lot that really had a very, 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 very healthy self-esteem. And I don't mean that in a good way. It was way overinflated. It was a lot of I and them. And so I think that that's part of it. To a guy, it's like, I don't want to be with someone who's a flake. You know what I mean? Like, if you're swerving every single guy that comes across you, then guys look at that and say, and you're not dating anybody, but you're out in a club and it's like you're looking for the right guy or what have you. Guys aren't interested. Younger girls will sit there and say, like 21-year-olds are like, oh, cool. So guys think, do I want the 35-year-old that's had umpteen number of boyfriends and experiences and everything else and have done all this stuff, or do I want a 23-year-old who, you know, maybe hasn't? And who is, you know, just like, yeah, you know, let's go on a date. Cool, let's hang out. Let's get to know each other. You see what I'm saying? So that is the problem. So it's not just that black women are the only ones. I think that they are bearing the biggest brunt of it. But I think that all women are going through that because a lot of men are saying, you know, you got to bring something to the table. If a guy has to be all of these things on paper, then a woman needs to be all these things on paper too. There's a lot of things that men want also. It's not this imbalance. And unfortunately, women have been taught incorrectly. It is. They've been taught incorrectly. And then by the time you know it, you're in your late 30s, early 40s. Or women will get married to a guy, throw the relationship away. There's no issues other than we just grew apart. You hear a lot of that. We grew apart. That's what my ex used. Well, you know, we just grew apart. Well, the problem with that is that one's married and the other one isn't to this day. Because with women, once you get older, especially if a guy wants to have kids, hell, by the time you're 43, it's too late. For a lot of people, it's not a good thing. So women think that they have a lot of time, and really, when you think about it, no. And that was my whole mindset, was like, you know, I thought it out in my mind. If I think the vast majority of women are looking at relationships and men the way that they look at themselves, there wouldn't be as much of an issue. If they took the same amount of energy that they poured into themselves and also poured that into what do men actually want, how can I humble myself a little bit? How can I actually self-reflect and look at some of my own issues? Then it would be a different story. But often they will leave and try to find greener pasture and realize that, yeah, the pasture is green, but the flavor is still the same. And at the end of the day, unless you change and adjust to that type of flavor, it ain't going to work, especially as you get older. It's not going to work. Now, there are some people who do hit pay dirt, if you will. They may end. I know of people who, back in Indianapolis, I used to see a bunch of women who were in their 40s, mid 40s, later 40s in the club because guess what? They got married when they were 20. They had kids with someone. They grew apart. And then they thought that, oh, I can get into a relationship again with the man that I'm supposed to be with. And it doesn't happen. Now, I'm not just picking on Indianapolis. There's a lot of places like that. But you saw a lot of that in Indianapolis. So then what do? They go after young guys. And at the time, I was one of those young guys. They go after young guys because they're trying to relive their youth. And they're trying to feel attractive. Maybe they didn't feel attractive in their relationship. Well, before you know it, like they are in their 50s and still single. You see what I'm saying? So I know of some who had 3 or so kids and ended up getting married, but again, those kids are adults. You see what I'm saying? It's a little different. But when you have another big problem is women with kids. I know that's a touchy subject, but it is. Got a lot of men don't want to come into someone else's situation like that. If you have kids, it can be a problem because some men, it's not an issue. Other men are like, I don't want to have to deal with someone's baby father. I don't want to deal with that crap. Or, someone else's family that's not even a part of the relationship, but you got to deal with their nobody wants to deal with that headache. You can't really be a true father to the kid because there's all these boundaries. Nobody really wants to deal with that. There are some that do, and there's some that are cut out for that. Me, I'm not one of those types of guys. And there's a lot of guys I know that would absolutely not. You see what I'm saying? There are women who guys will think that everybody's looking at them. So they wear something low cut or they're, they got platinum blonde hair and just, they're as loud as they can and all this, and guys are turned off by that. To them, you look cheap. I'm keeping it real. Some of these white chicks that go out there with the blonde hair, they're just, and they think they're all that. Even white dudes are like, meh. I mean, maybe for some fun, but long term, nah. Juice ain't worth the squeeze. Now, that's not always the case, but you're seeing more and more and more of that because it gets old. It gets old. If somebody wanted a blonde-haired chick with blue eyes and that's cute, they can go to Holland. You know what I mean? Like, you're not unique and special. You're just not. And unfortunately, you have some people who really think that they'll put on several tons of makeup all over their face and think that they're gorgeous. Then you can find someone that never wears makeup someplace in Holland or Romania who is a knockout and don't even think that they're attractive. I mean, they think they're cute or whatever, but they don't think they're all that. Men would go for that any day of the week versus the other. And women don't seem to understand that. Or women who will complain and say, after they've curved 50, 60 guys a year, will then say, once they finally get a guy that is like, man, I'm not really into this. I know of dudes who have been in relationships with chick and personally said, I'm not really feeling this chick at all. This is a placeholder, man. Like, but when they're with the chick, they're like, yeah, of course, I love you, baby, and all this other stuff. And then, like, when she's not looking, they're like, this is... But they're only there because of the simple fact that it's something to do. It's something that's fun for them. That hurt my eyes when I did that. I'm tearing up. But they're not really that serious about them. And I know plenty of situations like that where the chick thinks that it's something, but the guy's like, it really isn't. You're just too full of yourself, you're too this, you're too that. And then when the guy easily walks away, they're like confused. Well, it was just so simple for you to walk away because he wasn't really there to begin with. He wasn't really in it to begin with. He was just there as a placeholder. And because of the simple fact that he knows that you're not really that invested in he's not that invested in you because he doesn't feel like you're that invested either. And so that happens. That happens. A guy that's very serious, and any man can be very serious. A guy can be very serious if the woman is someone who is there's a back and forth going. There's a back and forth going. And I think sometimes women are saying, but I treated him great, I did this, I did that. Okay, but were you super possessive? Were you very clingy? Could he not hang out with his friends? Were you always bad mouthing him? Were you always giving attitude? Were you always, like downing him, dogging him, talking trash about him, not defending him? Did you ever ask him, how are you feeling today? Like, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different denominations, and there are some men who absolutely will never get married. They don't want to, and there's some that can't, even if they tried, get married. So I'm saying there's issues on both sides of it for sure, but I think the biggest area is that just today there are women who really have such a high over delusional view of themselves. Not all, but there's a lot that do, and that gets in the way of them getting someone because other men can see that. And there are other women who swoop right in because they're like, that's not who I am. That may have been who I was. And other women can point that out. That's why I talk about, you mentioned the interracial dating. Other races of women see when there are black women who talk trash about black men. They see it. It doesn't affect black men in the dating marketplace. If anything, it actually helps. It helps. There are people who even today see me because I'm on YouTube. In person, I've had women of other races say, I've seen stuff on YouTube that's horrible. Like, why would your own women say such horrible things about black men? People have told me that. Not only just online that people have sent stuff. So if I am a YouTuber, this tiny, right? Imagine the black male YouTubers who are by far bigger, what they're told. And I typically respond back that that's not all black women. That's a small few that have been hurt or have issues, major issues. And so that is where that's what they think is therapeutic, and it doesn't work. You need therapy. You see what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't help you. If anything, it creates this situation where other groups will say, well, I know of plenty of black dudes who are great, or plenty of black dudes who are treated bad. And there are black women who are treated bad as well, equally bad, worse sometimes. You see what I'm saying? So I think it's more or less that this generation, my generation, some of the ones younger than mine, and all of that, some of those that are a little bit older than mine, are just not, they're too busy worried about themselves. We have a very selfish, throwaway society. And if that's the way that a person is, it's not going to work. Doesn't matter what race of guy you get with or what race of woman you get with. If you're one of those types of people, it's going to be very, very hard for you, unless you have someone who's a simp. And unfortunately, you have women who are simps and you have men who are simps. You can just sit there and do anything you want to them and they'll stick around. Right? And other people see that and it's like they feel sad for you. You see what I'm saying? And you may not care, but it does shine through. My whole point is be the best version of yourself. That's the advice I can give you. Be the best version of yourself. That doesn't mean getting 50 degrees. That doesn't mean that you make $800,000 a year. No man really gives a damn, because a man that really wants to be the head of the household or believes in that mindset, it doesn't matter how much money you have. I don't want your money. I don't want your money to be used for anything. I want to take care of everything. You want to sit back on that, or we use it for a vacation, cool. But I don't care about your money. I want to physically know I'm bringing in food that gets on the table, that bills are being paid. If we are in a committed relationship, don't expect a guy, if you're dating him, to pay your bills. That's a fool. If a man and again, I will say this to men, don't be a fool and start paying someone's bills and you're not in a committed long-term marriage with them. People are in long-term relationships and they do that, and it's like, that's fine. You can do whatever you want to with your money. But to me, it's foolish whenever you don't have any sort of, she could be milking you for all your money and dating, you know, Tommy from next door down the street, and you don't know it. So when you're off working and slaving away to get bills paid for her, she's over there and having a relationship with someone else. Happens often. I'm not saying that if you're married it changes that necessarily, but the only way that I would pay bills for anybody is if I'm married. Hmm. And the other thing is that you have women saying, you know, guys should take us out on dates and they should pay for us to have a meal and this and that. I'm not the government. This isn't a welfare system. This isn't, people say that, you know, there's no real men anymore and blah, blah, blah. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I don't want to be a housewife and take care of stuff in the house and raise the kids and basically, you know, follow the man's lead. I don't want to do that. But I want men to be traditional in the way that they treat me, and that they pay for everything, they do everything, they're very chivalrous, and they do this, they do that, and blah, 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 and pine after me. You need to get a puppy. Because if you want something that's going to pine after you like Quincy does Noel, get a dog. But I'm not going to be on my knees begging Noel for anything. The dog does, but I'm not the dog. You see what I'm saying? Like, no. And a lot of women want that. And it's like, you're basically, what you're describing as a puppy. You're not describing a man. Not one of any sort of value in himself and belief in himself. You're basically dealing with a guy, or wanting a guy that really and truly is looking for a master. That's not me. And I think that describes a lot of men. They're not looking for someone to be their master. That's one of the reasons why a lot of black men push back on the whole interracial dating thing, even if they're not even in one. There are black men who have never dated someone of another race, and they will still push back because black men are no one's, there's not going to be a master over any black man, period. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, male, female, dwarf, doesn't matter. There's not going to be someone who is going to be a master and tell you what to do, who to date, what to this, all of that. Doesn't work. And it doesn't work for men overall anyway, no matter the race. It's just, in particular, black men, they may not say much, but they're still going to go date whoever the hell they want to date. And I agree. Black men who date out should not dog black women. And equally, black women don't need to dog black men. I feel that if you do that, because people think just because you have some boobs and a who, you can sit there and talk trash all day long and that's okay. No. That doesn't matter. To me, you're no different. If you are a person who's black and you talk trash about a black man, you're no different than a Klans member to me. Likewise, if you're a black man, you talk trash about black women all day long, you're no different than a Klansman to me. To me, it's the same. The outward appearance may look different, but the mentality is still the same. I don't respect people like that. I don't like people like that. I don't care if you've been in an all-black relationship and everything you know is all black, and you wear all black all day. That's cool. But as soon as you start dogging other black people, whether they're in a interracial relationship or not, or whatever the case may be, if you're a black person, you talk negative about black people, regardless of the gender, then I view you no differently than I do a Klansman. Right? And it's the same thing for any race of people or any gender. If you sit there and talk negative, and there's been this campaign to seem to do so, especially on our account, even by non-black women, you have some people doing that, then I view you as basically no different than the Klan. I just do. Right? And I don't think I'm alone in that. And I think it's a turnoff for other people. Other people look at them and they're like, ew. It doesn't fly too much this day and age. It's like, ew. I know of white dudes who have been with black women who have trashed black men all day, every day, talk stuff, and they're like, why would I be with someone like that who has so much self-hate? Because if you talk trash about the opposite gender of yourself, but of the same race, that's self-hate. Now, you're rationalizing that self-hate by putting it off on another target that's not you. So when you have black men that talk negative about black women, really it's not about black women. It's really about self-hate. I hate myself, so but to make myself feel better, I'm going to push that over on black women. You know, the black women are this and black women are that. It's the same thing with black women who talk all this trash about black men, calling them dusties and saying that they should be aborted and all this other stuff and cheer when they die. These are the same black women who have a tremendous amount of self-hate. You see what I'm saying? And other men who have some sort of value. Now, anybody can date a primate. A primate's a knuckle dragger who, it doesn't matter what race they are, they'll just simp and date a person that has no true constitution. They don't stand for anything. They're just basically, they'll be with a woman who is just toxic. Right? You may get some of those who are okay with you talking trash about black men, but the vast majority are going to look at that and be like, ew, if you're talking that way towards someone who looks just like you, who looks like your brother, what are you going to say about me if things don't work out well? What are you going to say about me in our relationship to other people? Back in the day when I dated white chicks and they were trash white dudes, I'm like, damn. Like, if that's how you feel, like, that's concerning, because the one person that is very similar to you in many aspects, you're trashing. And what does that say about me? What are you going to do about me when things aren't good? So a person that really has some substance to them, they don't like that type of thing. But I think the dating market is very challenging. No question about it. It's very, very difficult. And part of this is due to the fact of just people's mental state and having these huge delusions of grandeur. And I think a lot of men are just not into that. They're just not. So anyhow, I hope I answered your question. Be sure, and thank you for the question. Be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.